Hello everyone, how you doing? I am just gonna check to make sure that the fireplace effect is off, definitely off, and also that I'm not too loud, and I am. So hold on just one quick second, I'm gonna move my mic away a little bit. Alright, that should be a bit better. I'm trying out having my mic a little bit farther away, but more sensitive. So trying to balance that out. How are you guys doing? It's Kristi. It's Friday, and this is not my usual time to be doing a live stream. My normal live streams are Sunday, but I ostensibly am on vacation, although we'll get to that in a second. And so I thought, well, you know, I don't do a lot of prepared videos anymore, and there's a lot going on, so why not have a quick live stream during the week to see how things are going. So just checking the chat here. I don't see anyone in there yet, but I'll just say hi and make sure that this isn't a private stream again. That was a problem last time. And it looks like it should be public, so that's good. It's not an unlisted stream as it was last time. Yes, I was planning today on doing, how should I say this? I was planning on doing a Michael Cohen review. The challenge I face with that, however, is that I ended up doing work this morning and yesterday. So I took vacation Thursday, Friday, and we have a holiday on Monday, so it was going to be a 5-day week, a 5-day weekend, which was going to be really nice, but then there are just deadlines. And so on Thursday, I ended up having to do some work, about 2.5 hours worth of stuff. And then this morning I was up and on a call. I had to prep for it, and the call started at 9, and I think I finished just before 12 o'clock. And so I was wrapping up work at about 11:15, realizing there was absolutely no way, or 11:30 maybe it was. And I was wrapping up work going, there's no way I'm going to get all this done. So I kicked the show back a half an hour, and that allowed me to, well, I was going to finish editing a video that I was going to use today and go to the grocery store, but I did them in the wrong order now that I look back. I went to the grocery store and sorted out all my stuff, and then I finished up the video. And that means the video is currently being uploaded to YouTube. And it claims that it needs about 45 minutes. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to waffle a little bit in the first part of the show. We can look at Michael Cohen's testimony because that section of it is pretty succinct, and I know now I've watched the hearing. I watched it live, and I watched most of it again last night, editing this damn 45-minute long compilation of clips from a 7-hour hearing that isn't ready when I go live. So we'll see how that goes. But I just want to check in and see how things are going, just because I'm a little bit paranoid now that I've messed things up in the chat, or messed things up previously. So let me just do a quick check here to make sure that the live stream is actually live. Yeah, and I did see some people in the chat, but it might have been cleared up. Okay, there are 6 people watching. Hello, 6 people. Well, one of them is me, so hello, 5 people. All right, we're all good to go with that. Right, so a little bit of warm-up. How would you like a little bit of warm-up before we start talking about the Michael Cohen? I've got some really nice some moments of Zen here for us to look at. This week has been incredibly intense and news-filled again. There was the failed North Korean summit. There was the problem with the Cohen test. Not the problem, but Trump's challenges with the Cohen testimony. There was the House vote that passed the first universal gun law, like background check law, the first gun reform bill that's been passed in Congress in 25 years. The Democrats got through yesterday, or earlier this week. I guess it might have been Wednesday, but yeah, I mean, the Dems, people, I know there is a lot of, let's see what we say, heuristic, where people just crap on the Democrats. And I've seen this a lot when people go, oh, the Democrats, and you ask them which Democrats, and they'll specify it. They go, establishment Democrats. Like, okay, that doesn't help me. And I think that, and for what, rightly or wrongly, there is a straw man of the Democratic Party which is all the bad things that people don't like about the Democrats, and they just call that the Democrats in tweets and on social media, Facebook. When the fact is, you know, the Democrats were holding hearing on prescription drug issues and how to fix that. They've held hearings already on restoring voter rights. They stopped Trump's wall funding. They just passed legislation on a universal background check. Now you can say, yeah, it's not going to go through in the Senate. Fair enough. But you know what? They've established a bill that can get through the House in this session, which means that if the voters give us a Democratic Senate in the next election, we already have the House language pretty much worked out. So it irritates me when people just crap on the Democrats or the Democratic Party as if everybody in the party is the problem. And if you have problems with specific Democrats for specific reasons, please name them, as opposed to just crapping on all the parties. Because for people who are in the middle, the people who aren't engaged in politics, if they hear people who vote for the Democratic Party crapping all over it, saying the party is useless, the party is hardly better than Republicans, there's really no difference between the Democrats and the Republicans. What incentive are you giving to people who are low information voters who only vote in presidential years to get excited about your party and your candidates? Elections are about differences, and it's fine to criticize the party. But the time to criticize the party is like, you know, when you're talking about how to, like, people who you like and why it should go in this direction, but blanket crapping on the Democratic Party as if the whole thing is a corporate shill, all it does is it turns off people from voting for us. And if that's your goal, way. Hello! Is there an echo? Hi, John, I see you, by the way. Hello, hello, hello. But this is really, I see how my camera is freaking rubbish. And that's probably, there's no point in me even having this on, is there? Hi, Pillbox. So I think because I can, oh no, I just got myself paused. I thought that there was no video going, but then it turned out I've just paused it, so I'm not using bandwidth, and I just thought it was stuck, but apparently it looks fine. All right. Hey, I recently discovered your channel, says Adobe, and I really like your viewpoints. Keep up the great work. Well, thank you and welcome. My viewpoints are definitely, I don't pander to my audience. I speak what I think is the truth, and I don't force my views on other people. I'm not going around trying to convince Sanders voters not to vote for their candidate. Lots of people are trying to, not lots of, let's say already half a dozen people have approached me to get me to stop voting for my candidate. But yeah, I just have my views, and I will give my opinions, but thank you. I appreciate that. And I'm in black and white. Yes, here is why I wanted to, I'll explain this, because I'm still waiting for this Cohen video to finish so we can start. It might be in the second half of the show, though. Yeah, there are 3 things that I need to get ready when I do a show. I have to prepare my content. I have to prepare my OBS environment. That's what you guys are looking at now. And I have to prepare myself, which means doing my hair, doing my makeup, you know, fixing the circles under my eyes, making sure everything is good. And today I had to give up on one of those things. I could either finish up my content, I could finish up my OBS environment, or I could finish up my own preparation. And I decided black and white, and wash, you know, like a quick hair wash and blow dry, plus black and white filming would be enough. So yeah, that's why I'm in black and white today, is because I didn't want to risk being the reality of color recording. So shall we have a couple moments of zen? What's up, UT? This first one is a puppy stretching. It's so cute. And then just after this last week, I just need this. This is my mental vacation, right? So let's all just look at the cute puppy stretching. Whoa, that's really nice and lovely. I like that. Now I've got more. I've got some serious ones. Oh yes, this is also a good one. Some moments of zen. This is if you have a back scratcher, how you can make pigs turn into your little slaves. They'll immediately fall over and put their bellies up, going, scratch me more, scratch me more. And yeah, I can relate to that, as you know, Somebody who enjoys a massage, and the other piggy is very interested in getting the exact kind of loving that he sees going on there. He's like, I want a bit of that. Give me some of that back scratching on my belly as well. So watch this. And immediately the knees start to go a bit wobbly. Oh, and then it falls over. Boom. On your sides immediately. Just, it goes weak in the knees. I don't know. Do they have knees? Weak in the legs, maybe? Stay down, stay down. You know, like the power of my overwhelming back scratcher will make you putty in my hands. And then there's this. And it's just, you know, reminds me how much connection is a universal, like those physical sort of contact and affection. This is a very universal thing. So we've seen mammals and avians and I don't know if insects cuddle, but certainly these branches of the life species are looking for a bit of love. More. So those are the things that I watch in my mind, you know, to like relax my mind. My social media oases of animals being sometimes more humans than humans. Being more human than humans. Alright, as long as we're looking for a way to... So currently my Cohen's clip is at 28% uploaded. It says 42 minutes remaining, but it said 45 minutes at the top of the hour, so I don't really know that that's an accurate assessment. But it's 29% uploaded, so I think we might have to do that in the second hour of the show. But can we have a discussion, guys? Alright, I'm going to check the chat a little bit. Let's see. I'm sure you didn't say anything. I'm just going to give you an approval on that comment because I'm sure you didn't say anything terrible, right? So let's see what you said. Good morning, Simone. Fully sympathetic as someone with his own image issues. Okay. So, UT says, oh, by the way, the Tories have had a decade to mess with the NHS and they are still a long way from killing it. Peripheral services have been most aggressively followed out, but the core is secure. My understanding, I just saw today that they're going to eliminate the 4-hour maximum waiting time rule. The Tories are. I know that people are very concerned about them selling off NHS property to private companies, and yeah, I mean, you can say the core is secure, but in terms of the experience of doctors working in the NHS and other staff and the demands being placed on them, and this bringing in of consultancies and stuff from the outside, I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying the NHS is perfect, you know, and that it can't ever be improved, but I would, you know, I think that there are people who would perhaps disagree with the idea that the core is secure. So, 1010 would pat, are we talking about the pig or the bird or the dog? Or all of them? I think all of the puppy and the piggies and the birds all get cuddles from us, from everyone. Can I also plug here my first ever video, says John? Yes, please do. For my YouTube channel, I've been learning some piano, and I think I'm doing well so far. Or actually, you said good so far. I did themes for Universal Studios and Hollywood. Yeah, or Halloween. Yes, if you can put, I don't know if you can put a, here, John, I'll quickly make you a mod, and then you can add a clip link to it in your, I'm sorry, you can add the hyperlink to your video in the chat. You now have permission to do that. Do you like ContraPoints? Yes, I do. Actually, Simone, you're pretty cool. I'll add you as a moderator as well. Anybody else want wrenches while I'm passing them out? Yes, I think ContraPoints makes really, really important videos for the community. I've had her on my channel, but she's too big a star now for me. She's gotten too big to come by. Not to like I've asked her and she's rejected me, but she's just like on her own trajectory. Good afternoon, Mithril. How are you doing? And Jubilee in 2020. Is that a Queen's Jubilee, or is that just the Jubilee because we're going to vote Trump out of office? I think that's the one I'm interested in. So, yes, you are all powerful now, and John's link is in the hyperlink. Shout out to Maduro and the anti-imperialist gang. Okay, there we go. Now, one thing I did want to talk about, and this is, I think, for perhaps people who live in Europe, maybe an important kind of, maybe not an important conversation, but it's a conversation to have. All right. I get I get a lot of crap for not being as left-wing as people in Europe are, and for not being as left-wing as people. It's very few, much fewer numbers of people who are European left in America, and I think it's also the economic traditions of the two countries or the two areas are so profoundly different that it's a little bit difficult for us to truly compare apples to apples. And I don't think I'm saying anything novel here, but it's not really a good idea apples to try to compare the politics. I'm gonna bring my mic down a little bit. I think I'm what's that word? Clipping. That's the word I'm thinking of. I think this one is a little bit better. Yeah, I think so. When we look at American political history, in political science, we have this. I know we said we were going to do Cohen. I'm going to try to get to it. The video is 36% loaded. We'll get to it. We'll try to do it in an hour or two. We're 17 minutes in. Let's just try to give it. It's 36% uploaded. Let's try to give it for like 45 minutes, and I'll rename the video. So if you came for Cohen stuff, we'll get there eventually. But this is important. Europeans and the market come from a different history than the Americas. There's a reason why Americans are more pro-capitalist than Europeans are. I think we can actually trace in some way all the way back to Adam Smith, who really articulated this in the European context, I think, quite well. When Adam Smith was writing in the European context, there was a monarchy and an aristocracy that held a lot of lands and the assets, and the crown had the ability to give monopolies, to give a favorite the right to sell, exclusive rights to sell or trade in certain commodities. And Adam Smith's attack on monopolies and the structures of the market were very much geared toward that monarchical structure and the problems inherent with it, with a lack of competition. And natural competition would provide a more organic and responsive provision of services. You ever have this thing where your glasses get your stems get a hair, and then you end up pulling your hair out because it accidentally gets stuck? Anyway, in the US, we didn't have that aristocracy. White people just stole all the land that they wanted. They didn't have to fight any aristocrats or monarch for it. They just had to take it by force. And I'm not going to say just take it. I mean, they did take it by force. They stole it. They stole the resources. They stole the land. They stole the water. They stole everything. And they didn't have a problem with the monarchy. Oh, thank you, Adobe. It helps with the goals. Every bit helps. So thank you for that $2. So I get a hug. Ooh, hug for you. Thank you. E-hug. With your consent. And so as a consequence, the kinds of capitalism historically we've experienced has been more on the mercantile business side, the middle class form of capitalism, the start your own business form of capitalism, the organic bottom up capitalism. And as you can see from this tweet, most registered voters in a recent Harvard Caps Harris poll, and by most they mean 65% of registered voters in the United States, said that they believe that the US economy should be built around a mostly capitalist system, compared to 35% who want a mostly socialist system. And this is important because it favors Republicans to call everything they don't like socialism because of this inherent, I want to say almost cultural preset towards a positivity toward capitalism. And I think that the thing about the capitalist system here that people see working is they don't have a lot of experience with seeing anything else. Canada's too far away. Mexico is, depends on where you live. But in terms of, a model and an example. And so the option of seeing, the Canadian system is I would say probably social democracy, but Americans are too arrogant to take lessons from Canadians, I think. Anyway, the point is that, in my opinion, we're much better off framing left politics in terms of finding the problems of capitalism and offering a solution in terms of a social safety net and living wages and worker protections and strengthening unions, rolling back anti-union legislation, working to overcome, whatever freedom of association obstacles that they've thrown in our paths. Because that, I think Americans are interested in regulating capitalism, but they're not open to socialism. And if you call public services and social services and a social safety net socialism, when socialism means a planned economy, whether that economy is planned by an elite or through democratic processes, it's still a planned economy, then you're not really doing socialism. You're not mainstreaming socialism by calling it social democracy. You're not mainstreaming socialism by appropriating, I should say, social democracy policies, and then I guess is the point to get elected on policies that are social democratic in nature, but then impose socialism, because that's not going to work. I mean, so this is it. I think that I think it's better for Democrats to put a line between social democracy and democratic socialism. I don't have a problem with having democratic socialists in the Democratic Party. If you want to be activists and try to bring the party more online, that's fine. That's what the party's there for. But I don't think it's a good idea to misrepresent social democracy as socialism. And so the other thing I want to say about this, and here's the source of it, by the way. Yeah, part one is 65% of people in this poll said that they support a capitalist system, and yet 64% of the voters say the Democratic Party supports socialism. And the Democratic Party generally does not support a planned economy. It supports policies that are closer to social democracy. So if we are not taking control of our narrative, if we are not saying social democracy is not socialism, then when Donald Trump comes along and calls every single person in the Democratic Party a socialist, well, 64% of people are just going to take that at face value, and 65% don't want a socialist economy. So this is why I think it's important that we get our terms right, that we get our language right, and that we get our candidates to get their language right as well. If you're a social democrat, if the point is social democracy, just say that. If your point is socialism, say that. But don't try to say the two are the same. All right. Facebook down. Oh, I don't know about that. Okay, so let's see what people also have to say in the chat about that. E-hug. Yep, you got an e-hug, Adobe. The policies of socialism are just popular. Let's use them to speak of universal health care and educational welfare. But the policies are not socialism if it's not based on a planned economy. And Americans don't want a system based on a planned economy. They want a system based on capitalism. And social democracy is, social democracy is capitalist. It's a way to reform capitalism. So I don't think that policies of socialism are not popular. The idea of planning out an economy is not popular. Healthcare is not, providing healthcare through the private sector is not socialism. Offsetting tuition fees with government subsidies is not socialism. Those things aren't socialism. That's just still working within the capitalist framework, but mitigating its worst factors. Most people just want nice things normally reserved for the rich. The way you do that is socialism. Socialism again is about a planned economy and a planned redistribution. So it's not just saying raising. Let me put it this way: if you think that establishing a living wage under a capitalist system is socialism, you're misunderstanding socialism. So yeah, I guess I fundamentally disagree that socialism is what the Democratic Party is offering when it offers Medicare, Medicaid for all, or universal tuition fees or anything like that. Okay. Bernie is a social democrat, right? It's hard to say. You would think that his policies when he talks about tuition fees and he talks about Medicare for all and he talks about a living wage, you'd think he's a social democrat, but he says he's a socialist. So can you guys get him to sort that out, please? Because it's really messing up social democracy. Calling social democracy socialism is actually harmful towards social democracy, in my opinion, because of the American people's predisposition toward capitalism. I don't know what a planned economy is or what it would look like. Well, they did attempt a planned economy in the Soviet Union. You know, I don't think it went very well, but in terms of a managed economy, it is trying to get a handle on the supply and the demand and redistributing your resources. So, we don't have a planned economy compared to what it would be like under socialism. So anyway, getting on. So that was some chat with the chat. And now let's go ahead. I promised you guys Michael Cohen. I've nittered and nattered, I don't know, chit-chatted for almost 30 minutes trying to get this stupid clips video done, which I should have done before I went to the grocery store. Oh well, it's half uploaded. Damn, this ain't ever gonna get done in time. It was 90 minutes, but maybe I'll just do a 3-hour live show. No, I'm not gonna do a 3-hour live show. Okay, so let's have a little look at the Michael Cohen testimony. Now, in my clips video for my fair use that I did, my intention had been to try to show an example of what both the Democrats and the Republicans on the committee were doing. And I think at this point I'm probably best off. We're going to do Michael Cohen's opening statement, and then I think that will probably get us to the top of the hour. Then we'll take a 5 or 10 minute break so I can refresh my coffee, and then we'll start up again. And maybe then I can, you know, I will have worked. This is going to be so stupid. I will have worked for about I worked on it for 2.5 hours last night and another hour today, and now we're waiting for it to be uploaded. So here's the thing. If we don't get to the Michael Cohen stuff beyond his opening statement tonight, Kevin and I are doing a happy hour on his channel at the usual time, which will be in 2 o'clock plus 7 is 7.5 hours from now. We are going to be discussing Jordan Peterson. Kevin is watching a Peterson, I don't know, something he's prepared. He's doing the timestamps. I'm going to live react. Oh, I can take my muted sign off. I'm going to live react, so I get to not watch it. And then we're probably going to talk about Michael Cohen. And if I don't get a chance to, because of my work schedule, get to the Cohen clips I wanted to get to, I'll do it on the happy hour tonight. How about that? And if I don't get to it on the happy hour, how about I could do another live stream tomorrow, because I'm on vacation and I'm feeling generous. So we'll see how all that goes. Maybe I'll set up already, and then you can have a Friday, a Saturday, and a Sunday live stream. Maybe even a Monday. I'm spoiling you guys. Spoiling, spoiling, spoiling. All right. UT doesn't like my opinions. Oh, that's okay. All right. We are going to watch Michael Cohen's opening statement because, in essence, the first part of it, it's organized. It's not super organized, in my opinion. I think maybe I'm just being nitpicky here. But he does a pretty good job of being efficient. I'm going to skip the part where he talks about himself and his personal life, but he does drop some major bombs when it comes to the Trump presidency and the criminality that is ongoing in the Trump presidency. And this is now kind of changed. There's a lot of things that it's changed, I think, a lot of people's perceptions of where impeachment is. Because it's one thing to kind of have it filter out through news and media. It's another thing to see a person live, a live witness. And this is what the purpose of all of these committee hearings, the purpose is. It's to put on this kind of drama, to put it out before the American people, to allow us to evaluate the evidence and evaluate Michael Cohen or anyone else and what they have to say, and whether we feel that impeachment is the right course to go forward. All right, so let's start with this. And I'll check the sound as well. You guys tell me if it's too loud. It will come, I promise.
Is your mic on?
Yes.
Okay, there we go.
Chairman Cummings, Ranking Member Jordan.
That seems a bit soft. I'm going to turn it up for you.
Thank you for inviting me here today. I have asked this committee to ensure that my family be protected from presidential threats.
All right, so one thing I'm going to do, I'm going to actually put a compressor on this, because is anyone else really annoyed by the lack of a pop filter? I don't know about y'all, but this I just wanted a pop filter for everything on this. I just was like, oh, this is awful. Every time there's a P or a P or a B, and I'm like, eh. So I'm going to see if I can have a filter on this so that the sound isn't quite as the distance between quiet and loud isn't quite as bad. So I'll see if that filter I just put on worked.
And that the committee be sensitive to the questions pertaining to ongoing investigations. I thank you for your help and for your understanding. I am here under oath to correct the record, to answer the committee's questions truthfully, and to offer the American people what I know about President Trump. I recognize that some of you may doubt and attack me on my credibility. It is for this reason that I have incorporated into this opening statement documents that are irrefutable and demonstrate that the information you will hear is accurate and truthful.
Let's talk about that. This was a good tactic from Michael Cohen. I guess do you guys care what I think about Michael Cohen? What do I think about Michael Cohen? My opinion on Michael Cohen is, well, I'm more of I just observe him. I don't feel like I need to defend him. I don't have a need to automatically attack him. I mean, I think he's obviously been through a lot, deservedly so. He's going to jail because he committed criminal acts, and actually, 3 years is not much compared to what he was actually up against. Do I unquestionably accept everything that comes out of his mouth? Absolutely not. Do I think he has more to lose in terms of longer jail time if he lies to Congress again? Yes. And does he have an incentive to be truthful and to demonstrate a willingness to cooperate in order to get a lighter sentence? Yes. So in terms of his motivation, there is no real rational reason to think he would come up here and lie. I know Donald Trump, of course, called him a liar, because that's what Donald Trump does. He calls everybody a liar. Anyone who disagrees with him is a liar. And yet, if you say something he likes, oh, then you're telling the truth. But I think that in this case, credible. Is credible a word I would associate with Michael Cohen in this hearing? I would. And not merely because I'm taking him at his word. I think part of his credibility does come down to the fact that he did bring his receipts. He did find that check that we're going to see in a little bit. He knew that just his testimony is not going to be sufficient for in certain areas. He was asked, do you have any external corroboration besides your own word that this conversation happened? He's like, no, I don't. I was there, I was an eyewitness, but I don't have anything else. So generally, I thought this was a good strategy for him. And we're going to, if we ever get that 62% uploaded clips package done, we'll see how he interacted with some of the members of the Congress. But bringing receipts, definitely. Can I just give you, can I give you 2 rules for life? The first one I learned when I was working in the legislature. I worked in the Wisconsin legislature. I don't know if you guys know that. I worked for a state senator, a state assembly office, one state senator, one state assembly representative. Then I worked for the Democratic Party, organizing events for like 2 years, and then I went back and worked in the Senate. And you document everything. You just document everything. Anything that you want to make sure you have a record of, you document. So, you know, definitely if you have things, you know, like I take pictures, I do screenshots, I have archive folders for, well, bearing harassment, because that stuff disappears if you don't do it. So one, document. And the other rule is, or the other guideline is, nobody cares what you think, only what you can demonstrate. And this was this is a paraphrasing of of a colleague at Essex, Professor John Bartle. Nobody cares what you think, only what you can demonstrate. And that doesn't mean like literally nobody cares about your opinion. People do, your friends do, your family do. Family does. But when it comes to an empirical claim, if you want to say something about the world, you can have the opinion, whatever opinion, kind of doesn't matter. What can you prove? What can you demonstrate? And that's what I think this hearing was about. It was about documentation, you know, him knowing where his documents were, and then demonstrating things rather than just claiming them. So let's keep going. Yeah, my 2 rules for life instead of like 12. It's easier.
When I accepted a job in 2007 to work for Donald Trump, that he would one day run for the presidency, to launch a campaign on a platform of hate and intolerance, and actively win. I regret the day I said yes to Mr. Trump. I regret all the help and support I gave him along the way. I am ashamed of my own failings and publicly accepted responsibility for them by pleading guilty in the Southern District of New York. I am ashamed of my weakness and my misplaced loyalty, of the things I did for Mr. Trump in an effort to protect and promote him.
I'll also say so there's some good comments in the chat. A good lie has to have its basis in facts. Yeah, that's true. And Cohen appears to be showing genuine remorse. Please note my use of the word appears. Yeah, and he is demonstrating that. We can't know his heart. Definitely. Republicans need some good trial lawyers on that committee because Cohen ran circles around them. Oh, yeah. In my clips, I've got some of that. Consider the guy a piece of shit, but still comparatively less a POS than his current detractors, including Trump and the disgraced Republicans at the hearing. Yeah, I would agree with that. It's all about rank ordering, really. Cohen was manipulated by the world's greatest con man. I also, you know, I worked in a loyalty-based business. Politics, probably like maybe in Trump world as well, loyalty is a currency in politics because it's... if you have a reputation of being a good loyal person, good party member, a good worker, this and people vouch for you, it opens doors while you're not in the room. You know what I mean? Loyalty, the person, like you know, and this talks about like staff loyalty and performance, whatever else. If you demonstrate that commitment to your boss, to the party, whatever else, and you have a good reputation, you're more likely to go farther because people will give you a bit more and see how you do. And in those situations, much like the Trump organization, our jobs were make our representative look good, make the senator look good. When the senator screwed up, find a reason that he wasn't responsible. You know, and it was that mentality I saw. I was part of it. I mean, I worked in that same situation, and so I can kind of, not obviously in a Trump experience, but I can relate to the way that working for somebody that is important can consume your life. Because I was chief of staff to a state senator who, you know, he wasn't the worst guy in the world, you know, but he wasn't like an angel either, you know, and there were staffers who had much worse bosses than me, but that expectation that you are there to serve someone is definitely a mentality I saw even on the state level, state assembly reps, and imagine someone like Donald Trump in New York.
I am ashamed that I chose to take part in concealing Mr. Trump's illicit acts rather than listening to my own conscience. I am ashamed because I know what Mr. Trump is. He is a racist, he is a con man, and he is a cheat.
So yeah, I mean, this was one of the bigger headlines. I think a lot of people took this out and put it in the headlines of the newspapers, you know, racist con man cheat. And it's all true, but he's not saying anything we don't know, but it is explosive when he actually starts to give his personal testimony. So I think that was, it was clearly powerful because the media picked up on it.
He was a presidential candidate who knew that Roger Stone was talking with Julian Assange about a WikiLeaks drop on Democratic National Committee emails.
That was me. That was me watching this. Did I tell you I made popcorn? I don't have it anymore because it's gone. It's in my belly. But whoa, what we've always been missing is the actual connection between Trump and WikiLeaks, and Roger Stone is that connection. And Michael Cohen apparently was in the room where it happened, where Stone called in and said, I just talked to Assange and he's dumping emails, and Trump was happy about it. Like, that's it. That's I mean, obviously eyewitness testimony isn't sufficient. They can maybe check. They could talk to the secretary lady. They can, or sorry, she's not a secretary. She's an executive assistant or something. I don't really know. But this was jaw-dropping to me. So let me just see what you guys are saying in the chat. Try to keep up with what's going on there. F all the Republicans sticking by Trump throughout everything he has done. Agreed. So just can I take a little side note here? It's terrifying to me to see what, okay, I live in Germany, where ordinary people, you know, who maybe had some bigotries, were given an opportunity to join a party that was openly racist and probably radicalizing in terms of giving them, you know, ideas and a system of racism that they didn't have before, and how citizens joined the Nazi Party, became part of it, and supported it and moved it on. And you see, and looking now at America, where people are saying, I don't really care what Donald Trump does. He's doing his, you know, I don't care about this or that. He's trying to do his best, and I support him. When Michael Cohen later says that if Trump loses the election, he's not confident that Trump would allow for a peaceful transfer of power. You see like how I'm living in the echoes of history, and yet I'm looking across at the possible domestic unrest that could come from people who are not loyal to the flag, who are loyal to, well, their God, and their heavenly God and their earthly God. You know, Jesus and Donald. Those are their two potentates that they want ruling over them. It's pretty terrifying, and I think 20 years ago I would have scoffed at the idea that an election would ever produce domestic unrest, because I'd lived through, it was 20 years ago, it's not quite 20 years ago, 15 years ago, Gore v. Bush. I mean, there was a whole week there, but 3 days in particular in 2000, where we didn't know how the election was going to end. And we didn't know if the Supreme Court was just going to end up, which is what they did, interfering and putting somebody in the White House. And yet we didn't have any, even when it went to the courts and it was appealed, the Democrats in America abided by the results. They abided by the Supreme Court's decision. We bound ourselves to that democratic norm. Does anybody think that the Republicans who support, I mean, I hate to call them Republicans now, because they're just Trump fanatics. They're Trumpians. But does anyone think that Trumpians will hold themselves to the same constitutional constraints? Fingers crossed, but who knows? Let's see. I got an ad for a hip-hop concert just now. Yeah? That's cool. The Republican Party is evil. It is really difficult to argue that it's not. I mean, you know, evil is a pretty powerful word. and it's one that I don't use lightly. I think it destroys sort of the democratic framework to call someone evil. On the other hand, what do you do when something is evil? You have to call it out, right? Yeah, the last part about not allowing for a peaceful transfer of power was genuinely frightening, and you live in the UK. Yeah. I mean, remember how heavily armed. Who are the most? There are 30% of the country owns most of the guns. And most of them are white dudes. You know, and just in raw numbers. You can say there's a lot of guns in the cities or whatever. Yeah, there is. But if you want to look at like who actually owns the guns, you go to an NRA convention. It is not filled with black women and Latino women up and down the aisles. It is white guys, and that's Trump's base. Evangelical Christians who think the world is coming to the end, an end soon. Jesus is coming back any day now. Are heavily armed and unbound by democratic norms. That's not frightening, is it? All right, let's go.
I will explain each in a few moments. I am providing the committee today with several documents, and these include a copy of a check Mr. Trump wrote from his personal bank account after he became president to reimburse me for the hush money payments I made to cover up his affair with an adult film star and to prevent damage to his campaign.
This was amazing. I know we're going to see it, but when so Trump was paying Cohen for the hush money out of his own funds and out of the trust. So dumb. So dumb. And Lindsey Graham, he was on television being interviewed saying something about, oh, well, obviously he paid him out of his own funds, therefore it couldn't have been illegal because no one's stupid enough to write a check for something that was illegal. Like, Lindsey Graham's like, already, he's Vichy government. He's gone. He's completely pointless now. Like, he always was. He just pretended to have ethics, I think. I think he pretended to have a core morality. And mostly just because, like, he was influenced by John McCain. Now he's being influenced by Trump. And that is what shape he's taking. He's like a really gross shapeshifter thingy. Like, morally, not physically. Like,
Copies of financial statements from 2011, 2012, and 2013 that he gave to such institutions such as Deutsche Bank. A copy of an article with Mr. Trump's handwriting on it that reported on the auction of a portrait of himself.
Sorry guys, I'm messing around with the sound. I was doing a test, I shouldn't have.
Ahead of time, and then reimbursed the bidder from the account of his non-profit charitable foundation.
This is, him testifying to this, saying as he's going to that he was the one who organized the straw bidder and the whole process. One is just skeezy. Like, it's so vain and self-centered to want to have the portrait of yourself be the one that is the most expensive, that costs the most by the end of the event. But it's just his blatant misuse of his foundation, the funds for his foundation, that seemed to me to be a series of criminal events that are really going to bring down the presidency. Remember that the impeachment process says high crimes and misdemeanors. It doesn't have to be a felony count to qualify for an impeachment charge. Misdemeanors are enough to start the process to question whether or not the president is fit to be the president. And Michael Cohen has all the receipts we need to introduce articles of impeachment today, just himself, before they even get onto any of the people he named in this committee hearing. So,
with the picture now hanging in one of his country clubs, and copies of letters I wrote at Mr. Trump's direction that threatened his high school, colleges, and the college board not to release his grades or SAT scores. I hope my appearance here today, my guilty plea, and my work with law enforcement agencies are steps along a path of redemption that will restore faith in me and help this country understand our president better.
Is Cohen capable of a, and as an atheist, I kind of hate to use the analogy, but a road to Damascus moment? And is it possible that Michael Cohen now is forced out of the Trump, by being forced out of the Trump bubble and being held accountable for things that benefited Donald Trump? Will Michael Cohen now reorient his moral framework going forward? It's possible. People point to John Dean, although I don't really know how much John Dean was caught up in the skeezy stuff. Michael Cohen was there every day for the skeezy stuff. But is it possible? Can it be earned? Possibly, yeah. I mean, what do they talk about? There's always a second act in American politics or something along those lines. Not that he's in politics, but I think people actually like a redemption story if it's sincere. And so I'm not extending him any automatic courtesy. Like I said, I'm impressed by the check. I'm impressed by the facts that he's been able to demonstrate. Those are the most powerful pieces of information in his testimony to me. His willingness to come forward is points in his direction. But yeah, if people want to just dismiss him, yeah, that's up to you. But I do think that there is space for redemption and learning and growing. And I can also tell you, when I was in the Wisconsin state legislature, there was and the statute of limitations for this is long, is like 3 years, and this was in the last century. But the common practice was that staff would do campaign work, not all the time, but some campaign work ended up getting done on state time. And it wasn't just that one person would do it. We were all expected to do it. We were also all expected to use our vacation time during the elections. So, we would basically like save up our holiday and then, like take our vacation and use that for the elections. That was also part of the norm. And when you're in that environment, and you enter in as I entered in as a legislative aide and worked my way up. By the time I got to be a chief of staff for my state senator, there was already an investigation going on. What had happened was, since it's 91% uploaded, so I'm going to fill this for a little time. I'll tell you a little story about Wisconsin politics and drama. So back in the 90s, there was this practice going on. And it wasn't a Democratic thing, it was a Republican and Democrats. Like, we would be up in the middle of a week in Antigo doing campaigning for a special election, and we run into Republican staff people from Madison. Okay? Like, it was mutually assured destruction for any of the parties to narc on the other party. Because if the system that allowed you to kind of use your employee staff or your state staff to do campaign work, if you called out the other party, then you would not do it either, right? You'd be busted yourself. And everybody was doing it. Everybody was doing it. It was an abuse of power, but that was the norm. That was what was expected. And what happened was a Republican had a Republican state assembly rep, Scott somebody or other, had an affair or had a love interest with this woman who was kind of associated with campaigns, but not really. She was like new to the scene. And they had a relationship. She saw and even became part of the whole discussions about using legislative staff for political purposes. And had emails and shit and kept receipts, document. Yes, she kept all that. And then he broke up with her. He dumped her. And when he dumped her, she took all of the things that had his name on it that were dodgy, and she went down to the local Madison paper. I don't know if it was the Capital Times or if it was the Wisconsin State Journal or if it was the Isthmus. I can't remember which paper it was now. This is 1990, so like many years ago. But what the newspaper did was, this was smart. The newspaper wrote to the Republican Assembly. So we had a Senate Democratic campaign kind of group, campaign committee, and then the Assembly Democratic campaign group. And they were separate staff. They were outside staff. They weren't on legislative staff. And the Republicans had the same thing at the Assembly and the Senate level. So the person who was running the Republican Assembly, like, re-election campaign office, got an email or a letter from the newspaper asking for all of these, doing a Freedom of Information request for all of these certain documents, the email of this date, the email of that date. And whoever was running it at the time saw those requests, found all the documents that were requested, had a big old barbecue in their backyard, and burnt everything, destroyed everything. What they didn't know was that the newspaper already had copies of everything they'd asked for. They were just writing to get confirmation from the legislator that they acknowledged it. So that was basically what blew the cover, or blew the lid off of the staffing scandal. It ended up claiming illegally, the state assembly leader on the Democratic side, Chuck Koala, and the state assembly Republican lead, Scott somebody or other. Scott, I think we call him Scooter. Can't remember his last name now. But they both were convicted. I had friends who had immunity imposed on them because they were forced to testify about the arrangements and how it all worked before the district attorney. So I got off on this as a little way to fill some time. But in terms of a culture of corruption, if you walk into that culture, as I did, as a legislative aide, 22 years old or whatever, right out of college, and you want to get ahead, you don't rock the boat. You don't say no when people offer you ways to demonstrate you're a good campaign worker, you're a good, loyal staffer. And so I understand how people can get caught up in that culture. And also I understand how once you're out of it, you know, you can see how twisted it was. And because I'm speaking from experience. All right, I'm going to check the chat. Yeah, I have deep connections. I was a Democratic Party, like, I put on the state convention for the Democratic Party. I was a paid member for years. I was Democratic Party before it was like any for one person. I was for the Democratic Party when Carter was president and running against Reagan, before I even really understood why I was a Democrat. I was a Democrat. And then later on I was, wow, even when as a kid I was right. So yeah, I have deep Dem roots. All right, so let's get through a little bit more of this, because we're getting to the top of the hour. The video was almost 90% uploaded in event. Oh, 4 seconds remaining. And then of course it has to process. So we'll see. Processing is started. Otherwise, we'll just do it after the happy hour tonight. So let's see if we can get through the Cohen testimony. I will do, like I said, another couple minutes, and then we'll have a break and come back for hour 2 or last 45 minutes. I don't know how long I'm going to go today.
Before going further, I want to apologize to each member, to you as Congress as a whole. The last time I appeared before Congress, I came to protect Mr. Trump. Today, I am here to tell the truth about Mr. Trump. I lied to Congress when Mr. Trump stopped negotiating the Moscow Tower project in Russia. I stated that we stopped negotiating in January of 2016. That was false. Our negotiations continued for months later during the campaign. Mr. Trump did not directly tell me to lie to Congress. That's not how he operates. In conversations we had during the campaign, at the same time I was actively negotiating in Russia for him, he would look me in the eye and tell me there's no Russian business, and then go on to lie to the American people by saying the same thing. In his way, he was telling me to lie. There were at least a half a dozen times between the Iowa caucus in January of 2016 and the end of June when he would ask me, "How's it going in Russia?" referring to the Moscow Tower project. You need to know that Mr. Trump's personal lawyers reviewed and edited my statement to Congress about the timing of the Moscow Tower negotiations
That's huge. By the way, see, if we ever get to watch my clips package, I've taken out all the stuff that is not related to like really big explosive claims. Oh, 9 minutes remaining for processing, actually, so we could actually look at my clips package. Woo! After this. Yeah, but what was it? I can't even remember the point I was making now. Oh, yes. That is huge. The idea that the president's attorneys were signing off and making edits to his testimony. You can see how AOC is already like making notes. These women, by the way, these women rock. When I went through to look at some of the best questions from Democrats, of course these three were in my list. Sadly, they're really close to the end of the hearing, but that doesn't diminish the power of their comments. And it was, you know, it was a little bit, for me, thinking back after watching all of it, I realized the extent to which the best questions are coming from, like, women of color. like bam, 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 bam. Like, getting it done. So hats off. They are doing it. So, I can't remember what my point is now, but we'll go. Oh, just how important it is that the president's legal team was conspiring to make sure everybody was on the same message. That's big.
Before I gave it. So to be clear, Mr. Trump knew of and directed the Trump-Moscow negotiations throughout the campaign and lied about it.
Another point is that I'm pretty sure that the first line of the Nixon impeachment document charged him with lying to the American people first. So I think that's going to be interesting to, when we get our impeachment documents from the Dems, how much of it is going to look almost identical to the Nixon impeachment process.
He lied about it because he never expected to win. He also lied about it because he stood to make hundreds of millions of dollars on the Moscow real estate project. And so I lied about it too.
We're gonna maybe come to this a little bit later, but I'm probably gonna stop after this because we're gonna take a break, and the video only needs 7 more minutes to process. So I think by the time I get done with my break, to wrap up, you know, and say everything I usually say, it'll be time, like, we can actually use my clips package. And by the way, thanks to C-SPAN for the fair use. By the way, I picked them because I figure they're the least likely to come after me with a copyright infringement. And I can definitely demonstrate fair use with this. So rather than using ABC's version or Washington Post, I'm going with this one. The point that I wanted to make was one of the massive, huge problems, and this is far more a problem in the Republican primary than in the Democratic primary, but a huge problem of corruption in the Republican primary system is that because of its norms and the kinds of people that it attracts, you do get fake candidates. You get people who run for president in order to get exposure. I think Herman Cain is a good example of that, Pat Buchanan, Newt Gingrich, Pat Robertson. I mean, just going back, I mean, like, and those are just the ones I can, like, the most egregious ones I can think of off the top of my head. And there's something perverse about our system that it allows people to hijack an election process that's supposed to be a serious discussion about the policies that work best for our country and what we should do as a people to realize the goals as set out in the Declaration of Independence, and using that process to instead raise your name recognition so you can sell books, or you can get more viewers on your televangelist show, or you can get more people to come and listen to your radio station program. There's a fundamental corruption of that Donald Trump went into that norm and that sort of vacuum that they just leave sitting there every primary process, and he won. He went in thinking it was just going to be about name ID, using other people's money to advertise himself, travel around the country, bring himself a whole, you know, touch base with a whole new market of customers, and he ended up winning. And now it's probably going to end up with investigations that'll bring down not only his presidency, but maybe his entire business. Because he's a criminal. And he was flying under the radar mostly. I mean, he's gotten into some trouble, but not this kind of trouble until the limelight, or the spotlight, I should say, of the national media was put on every part of his life. And that's what becoming president does. So anyway, shall we take a break? You can't have policies that work for the country. Which part of the country? Well, if you have, for instance, universal background checks so that gun purchases have to go through a clearance process, whether it's a private transaction or at a gun show, that's a policy that works for the country. It doesn't matter where you live. I mean, the point of the federal government is to create federal policies. States can do more shaped policies for their personal needs, but you can do policies that work for the country, like banning bump stocks. The one thing that Trump has ever done that I agree with, basically, is banning bump stocks. So, all right, let's do 5 minutes away. Also, you guys, if you want to hear, do you know about the Free Music Archive? They're pretty awesome. Let me just bring them up. If you have some music that you would like to hear me play as the intro music, I'm going to show you where I get all of my music from. And that's this website right here, the Free Music Archive. One day I'm going to give them some money because I actually use this service a lot. But if there's any songs on here that they have to, also just really quickly, if you're going to search music, you want to make a recommendation of a song that I could use for the live show, you should definitely do that. We're not going to take the survey because the survey doesn't exist. I've tried to take their survey and it doesn't help. You have to, or I anyway, always put allows for commercial use, because that will get you the ones that are absolutely most likely to be usable. And if you use the ones allows for commercial use, it will screen out anything that might get me in trouble or you in trouble. So if you want to hear any of that, give me a link to the Free Music Archive before show, and I can make that the music for the opening that you're going to listen to now. So, guys, let's set up for a 5-minute break. I will hopefully by that time have the clips package ready for you. That's 14:13 my time, but it's just swapped over. So let's just make it 6 minutes, and then we'll be back here at 1/4 after the hour. All right, thanks guys, and we'll see you in a little bit. And we're back. Not only are we back, I managed to not mute myself. And we have the Cohen clips. Already there's a copyright claim on the video. So I've made this unlisted because, you know, you can get flagged for copyrights and stuff, so I didn't want to like put it out there, but it's literally just a clips package, as you'll see. But I went, okay, you know, that's alright, C-SPAN, I totally use their stuff. If they want to claim the copyright on this and monetize it because I've taken their content, fair enough. So I go, before we went on air, to check out who tried to file a copyright claim, and it was freaking Vice. Vice News tried to copyright claim shit from C-SPAN. I'm gonna file a dispute. I'm gonna file a dispute on that. So like, I'm not filing it on behalf of myself. I'm filing it on behalf of C-SPAN. And this happens, by the way, a lot of times when you use classical music on YouTube can be a bit tricky because it's literally identically the same song every single time. You know, if you do the Brandenburg Concerto or whatever piece of music you do, there might be a little bit of difference in terms of, you know, the tone of the oboes or the violins or the pace a little bit, but basically it's quite common to have a Creative Commons license piece of classical music that then somebody tries to file a copyright claim on, claiming it's their version of that song. And because I use copyright or Creative Commons licensed music only when I do my videos, it's easy for me to file a dispute and go, no, this file comes from right here. Like, here's the hyperlink to the file, and I always win. Anyway, you don't care about that. Other than Vice News is a bunch of lying, thieving, trying to grab my monetization for C-SPAN's work, media outlet. All right, so let's go ahead. You can see now this really. We're going to see some of what we saw already, but I'll try to skip ahead a bit here.
That some of you may doubt.
All right, we already heard that.
I hope my appearance here today.
We heard that.
Because his personal attorneys reviewed my statement.
We heard that.
History has seen Mr. Trump court white supremacists and bigots. You have heard him call poorer countries shitholes.
Yeah, I was kind of surprised that he actually dropped the shithole bomb on live television, but he is quoting him accurately. So, yeah, we can pick up from here. Yeah, so we'll go there, and then I will look back. I can see in the chat where I went hey, chat, and we'll go back and do some questions. But let's get ahead with this clips package that I worked so hard to get done for this show. So let's pick up where Trump is a massive freaking racist.
In private, he is even worse. He once asked me if I could name a country run by a black person that wasn't a shithole. This was when Barack Obama was president of the United States. And while we were once driving through a struggling neighborhood in Chicago, he commented that only black people could live that way.
And honestly, we know that Trump is this kind of racist, so this wasn't...
would never vote for him because they were too stupid.
They're actually too smart. To be honest, they see through his bullshit because they see what he says about them. I mean, the idea that they wouldn't be smart because they weren't voting for Trump,
as previously
that's
stated,
ridiculous. Trump has alienated black voters. I'm giving to the
committee today 3 years of Mr. Trump's personal financial statements from 2011, 2012, and 2013, which he gave to Deutsche Bank to inquire about a loan to buy the Buffalo Bills and to Forbes.
So this is him demonstrating that Trump was out there actively engaging in fraud and misrepresenting his wealth. That's why I pulled this clip.
These are exhibits 1A, 1B, and 1C to my testimony.
I think the sound on this one's a little bit quieter.
It was my experience
so I turned it up a bit
that
for
Mr.
you.
Trump inflated his total assets when it served his purposes, such as trying to be listed amongst the wealthiest people in Forbes, and deflated his assets to reduce his real estate taxes.
Now, okay, I'm just going to say something about pop filter. I think all the mics in Congress, they just need to go out and get that little piece of foam. Pop that baby on there. It would make a world of difference, because now that I know how mics work, when I hear that plosive, and you hear not the P sound, but you hear the air pop, you know, I can almost picture the unit inside that's sort of like getting the impact of that. And it's like in my head, like boom, 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 which is very annoying. So I would actually donate, maybe raise money and just put a whole bunch of little foam caps, pop filters. I'll just hand them out for free. Congress can have them, because it would make such a big improvement in the audio quality of Congress hearings if you weren't, if I wasn't twitching and wincing every time someone hit a P or a B. And I put these blinks in here to like talk over it, and then it would ideally fade into the next one.
Trump is a con man. He asked me to pay off an adult film star with whom he had an affair, and to lie about it to his wife, which I did.
I don't think I put the clip in here in the end, because at some point I just had to start cutting. But during the testimony, Michael Cohen does say that at one point Trump was denying having the affair, and he was on the phone with Michael Cohen while he was talking to Melania. He put Michael Cohen on the phone and handed the phone over to Melania, and Cohen had to tell Trump's wife. He had to lie to his wife for him. That's the kind of scumbag he is. And I guess, you know, it's not surprising. It's just reinforcing at this point that the man is scum.
And lying to the First Lady is one of my biggest regrets, because she is a kind, good person, and I respect her greatly, and she did not deserve that. And I'm giving the committee today a copy of the $130,000 wire transfer from me to Ms. Clifford's attorney during the closing days of the presidential campaign that was demanded by Ms. Clifford to maintain her silence about her affair with Mr. Trump. And this is Exhibit 4 to my testimony.
Yeah, we already knew about that, so I'm just going to use this time in between to say, yeah, let's move on. I'm not going to pause. I'm trying to get through this now. I'm trying to get through it.
As Exhibit 5A to my testimony shows, I am providing a copy of a $35,000 check that President Trump personally signed.
This was one of my favorite
bank account on August 1st.
Oh, we all know that signature by now, right? We all know that signature by now. We've seen it on executive orders being flashed around by, oh, look at me, I'm a big boy. I can sign my own name. This, smoking gun. Impeachment guaranteed. Just like grounds right here. He committed campaign finance fraud, willingly, knowingly, and while he was in the Oval Office. I'm going to stop talking now because words are hard.
Of 2017, when he was president of the United States, pursuant to the cover-up, which was the basis of my guilty plea, to reimburse me, the word used by Mr. Trump's TV lawyer, for the illegal hush money I paid on his behalf. This $35,000 check was one of 11 check installments that was paid throughout the year while he was president. Other checks to reimburse me for the hush money payments were signed by Donald Trump Jr. and Alan Weisselberg. And see for that example 5B.
All right, so on that, it's just, to me, Michael Cohen's already going to jail for a crime he committed to benefit Donald Trump. Michael Cohen got literally no benefit at all out of his participation in this, other than the fact that, he was helping Donald Trump, but he didn't personally benefit from the lies. He had to basically front the money out of his home equity loan, which he explains in his testimony. He used the home equity loan because it was a source of funds that he could tap without notifying his wife. So he was hiding these transactions also from his spouse. And the idea was he would take money out of the home equity line to pay off Stormy Daniels or Stephanie Clifford. And then later on, that money could be replaced and he could go around his wife, because if he used his daily household expenditures or monies, then she would notice. So how is it possible that he can go to jail, but Donald Trump would never be even tried for the crime that he personally benefited from? So yeah, we'll just see what happens with that. But I know people are doubtful of impeachment. You say we'll see. I actually think that everything the Democrats are doing right now is to lay the groundwork for impeachment, including not saying the word impeachment. If you look at how Nancy Pelosi is organizing things, she knows what's going on. Like, she demonstrates that she has a command of what's happening in all of the committees that her chair people are running. She hasn't, she's not like sort of like clueless. She knows what they're doing and how it all fits in. Talked about being able to chew gum and walk at the same time. It's not enough to just let impeachment and the investigations paralyze the Democratic agenda. They have to be taking votes on universal background checks while they're interviewing. Like, they just have to do it, and they can, and she will. But yeah, going forward, I think you're going to see the Democrats not use the word impeachment because they don't want to discredit their own process. And when it's time to talk about impeachment, it will be when they have done everything necessary to guarantee it through the House. That's my prediction anyway.
Also knew that nothing went on in Trump world, especially the campaign, without Mr. Trump's knowledge and approval.
Which he testifies to this over and over again.
Don Jr. was referring to that June 2016 Trump Tower meeting about dirt on Hillary with the Russian representatives when he walked behind his dad's desk that day. And that Mr. Trump knew.
Oop, sorry. Are you guys hearing this twice? I'm just noticing my snowball is picking up some sound and I can't figure out where it's coming from. So anyway, if you have any problems with hearing with the sound, just give me a comment in the chat. Otherwise, I'll just hit play and assume it's fine.
Knew that was the meeting Don Jr. was talking about when he said, "That's good. Let me know."
All right, so I put that clip in because it was Michael Cohen. He wasn't sure, but he was speculating that he might have been there he might have been there when Donald Jr. came in to confirm the Russian meeting, but it was just more like a speculative thing rather than something he had proof for. So I think now...
Chairman Cummings and Ranking Member Jordan, and the other members of this committee, the members of the House and Senate.
Oh, he's just saying, I own this.
Was reporting back
and sorry about this.
And that Mr. Trump knew that was the meeting. The other members of
I'll just skip it.
actively working to hide from you the...
Yeah, so in this second, I'll just mute him for a second. He is acknowledging that he did wrong and he's taking responsibility for it. Then we get on to the next part of my clips package, which is, at this point, I tried to grab the Republicans' opening sort of statements and also the Democrats and compare them a little bit. What I clearly will not get to today is all the good stuff at the end. But what I can do in this show is we can get through that horrible Meadows racist display and have a little chat about white people's racism and not wanting to be called a racist when you do racist ass shit. So we're gonna have a little talk about that, and then probably I'll end up ending because it's gonna be what time is it now? Yeah, almost 2:30, and I really don't want to go more than 2 hours because I have the happy hour later on tonight. Whatever I don't get to tonight, I'll ask Kevin if we can cover on the happy hour. So with that being said, let's. All right. So let me just set the scene. Right, Michael Cohen has just given his opening statement. He's brought a check that demonstrates Trump's fraud. He's talked about witnessing a conversation between Roger Stone and Trump about Julian Assange and the WikiLeaks in the days before the Democratic convention when the dump ended up happening. He's talked multiple times about different highly unethical or even criminal behaviors, like criminal behaviors in inflating his assets. And yet, what do the Republicans focus on? Well, as you know, because you've probably seen the coverage already, they don't ask a single really substantive question about anything that Cohen brought up. There's one kind of never Trumper who gave him some softballs, but otherwise it's a shit show. It's a complete shit show on the Republican side. And you can definitely contrast the professionalism of the Democrats to the hysterical Rush Limbaugh ditto head sounding rhetoric coming out of the mouths of the Republicans. So let's listen to this freaking guy.
Let me ask you why you did some of these things. When you filed a false tax return in 2012, 2013, 2014, 2015, and 2016, was all that out of blind loyalty to the president?
No, it was not.
When you failed to report $4 million in income to the Internal Revenue Service, did you do that to protect Donald Trump?
No, I did not.
And when you failed to pay $1.4 million in taxes, I got constituents who don't make that in a lifetime. When you failed to pay $1.4 million in taxes to the U.S. Treasury, was that out of some blind loyalty to the President of the United States?
It was not, but the number was 1.38 and change, and I have paid that money back to the IRS at this.
This is what I don't get about the general GOP strategy. They seem to go in with questions they expect will be tarnishing, will be discrediting, but only if they were done on a talk radio show that Michael Cohen wasn't appearing on. So in other words, if he would have just said that on like Sean Hannity, it would have made Michael Cohen look worse. But the fact that Michael Cohen is here saying, no, I didn't do that to benefit Trump. No, I didn't do that to benefit Trump. No, I didn't do that to benefit Trump. I own that, and I paid that money back. It actually makes the Republicans look worse, I think, because all they're doing is giving him an opportunity to distinguish his own culpability from that of the president's. And I don't really... So they again, I think it's a problem from a cross-examination point of view. If you don't think about how or what response your interlocutor could give that would make you look bad. It just seems like that's the entire GOP strategy, is ask questions that are damaging, but not really think through the possible ways that Michael Cohen could respond to make them look bad in reverse because of how they handled themselves.
I think the American people will appreciate that one.
Based on your experience with the president and knowledge of his relationship with Mr. Stone, do you have reason to believe that the president explicitly or implicitly authorized Mr. Stone to make contact with WikiLeaks and to indicate the campaign's interest in the strategic release of these illegally hacked materials?
I'm not aware of that.
Was Mr. Stone a free agent reporting back to the president what he had done? Or was he an agent of the campaign acting on behalf of the president and with his apparent authority?
No, he was a free agent.
A free agent that was reporting back to the president what he had done?
Correct. He frequently reached out to Mr. Trump, and Mr. Trump was very happy to take his calls. It was free service.
Yeah, so this is also, you see this a lot in politics, where a candidate will be running for office, and somebody not officially associated with the campaign will still be working unofficially to help network them with other people, or be working in an unofficial capacity to maybe set up a fundraiser or whatever else. So the idea that Roger Stone didn't have an official role on the campaign doesn't mean he can't be an advisor to the candidate. One of the when you run a campaign, one of the hardest things to do is actually limit who the candidate talks to, because if you have a strategy for the campaign, you have a plan for the campaign and the election and what you want to do, when people who are close to the candidate but don't understand the campaign very well, or they have an agenda or their own perspective, start in the ear of the candidate, and then the candidate starts to think and get their own ideas. You don't want that. But that is exactly what Trump does. It's why he's unmanageable, because he looks for people to give him kind of advice and information that he likes, and then he makes up his, he just acts off the cuff. So for me, at least, again, coming from politics, the fact that Roger Stone wasn't officially associated with the campaign is irrelevant to his ability to act to benefit the campaign and sort of offer it up as a gift to the God Emperor, demonstrating his loyalty and usefulness, not because he necessarily wants, say, a job, but because he wants to be able to say he has that kind of access and influence. That in and of itself is worth a lot of money.
Roger Stone says he never spoke with Mr. Trump about WikiLeaks. How can we corroborate what you are saying?
I don't know, but I suspect that the special counsel's office and other government agencies have the information that you're seeking.
Yeah, so that's also interesting because there we go. The one is, he admitted he's not just gonna lie and say I have extra evidence that I can prove this. He's putting a limit, and this was one of the things that other people, and I think rightly, pointed to, is saying this adds to his credibility. He's not going out there and just saying whatever. He's very specific in what he says. This is the information I have. This is also what I think is discredited. This I think would never happen. This I think Mr. Trump would never do, but I have seen him do this thing. And so the fact that he's willing to, put limits on his own knowledge, like, I don't know about that, or I don't have any information on that, I think adds to his credibility. And at least, I don't want to say, is it credibility, sincerity, maybe? I don't, again, but he doesn't come across as just being a disgruntled employee who's looking for revenge in this case. So did you guys see that Roger Stone made a comment on this? He sent a text. So Roger Stone was charged, and then there was a gag order put on him. Remember that he wasn't supposed to, like, a limited gag order about influencing the jury pool, which he just blew right through, and on Instagram put up a picture of the federal judge overseeing his case with a crosshairs next to it, then cropped it out and put it up again with, again, very inflammatory text associated with the image and asking for money, and then had to take that down and issue an apology. Then his attorneys issued an apology. Then the judge hauled his ass before her and like, what is going on? And slapped down a more extensive gag order saying Stone couldn't talk about the Mueller investigation or his case or anything, and it included the Mueller investigation, anything associated with it. And here Michael Cohen was giving his testimony before Congress, and Stone sent reporters, I don't know if it was a BuzzFeed reporter or someone else, Maggie Haberman or somebody, a message just like one line saying that Michael Cohen is lying about this, whatever he says about me. And that's in violation of your gag order, mofo. What are you thinking? These men who can't shut their mouths. Paul Manafort had the same problem. I think the rules don't apply to them. And then they act as if the rules don't apply to them. And then there are consequences and they cry. It's where Sargon learns it. Roger Stone is he's walking in his footsteps. Except Carl is much less successful, much more politically impotent and irrelevant and sidelined. But in terms of trying to aspire, I can see where he's going.
Of your law license, I think you mentioned in your opening statement that you had been disbarred. What is your source of income? So the Republicans, by the way, remember, first thing was about his taxes. That was their first big out of the gate issue. And now this guy is going to come out with another really big Republican talking point throughout the course of the hearings. In the future.
I don't expect I'm going to have a source of income when I'm in federal penitentiary.
What, is there a book deal coming or anything like that?
I have no book deal right now in the process. I have been contacted by many, including for television, a movie. If you want to tell me who you would like to play you, I'm more than happy to write the name down.
So that was their other big, oh, what are you going to do for income after you get out of prison? And I'm not entirely sure what that's meant to do. Like, he could do the book deal without the hearing. He didn't need to come in front of Congress and be humiliated by Republicans to get the book deal. So what are the Republicans opposed to him making money? Are they opposed to him operating inside of, you know, of course, it's the double standard. They're being idiots. They're just trying to find ways of giving talking points to Tucker Carlson and Sean Hannity to avoid actually discussing the signature on the check. And it's the signature on the check. That's the thing that they want to not talk about at all costs. Because they're evil folks.
Mr. Cohen, in your testimony, you stated that you began work for the Trump Organization as a lawyer dealing with real estate transactions. Is that correct?
Oh, this is another idiot Republican.
Prior to
hard-hitting questions.
I've served as a director of 2 different banks, so I've seen hundreds of loan applications. And to try to determine your credibility here today, I just wanted to ask you a couple of real estate transaction questions just to see how, in fact, you operate.
So he gives him a quiz on real estate law to demonstrate his credibility. What the hell are you, what kind of dumbass? Again, you know, Republicans, like, they don't think, but your credibility isn't tied to your ability to answer questions from a law framework correctly. You know, if Cohen did, and I think he does, answer all the questions that he can to the best of his ability and they were correct, it's not like that guy was going to believe him anymore. He just wanted to use it as an attempt to make him less credible. And they're such a waste of time. They're such a waste of time. And that's what I was demonstrating with this. This is why we don't watch more of the Republican clips, is because they're useless. Utterly useless.
Guilty of committing bank fraud. If this statement back here doesn't say it all, Cohen's consciousness of wrongdoing is fleeting, his remorse is minimal, his instinct is to blame others is strong.
I'm sorry, is he talking about Cohen or Trump there?
There's only one wrong with that statement. His remorse is non-existent. He just debated a member of Congress saying, I really didn't do anything wrong with the false bank things that I'm guilty of and going to prison for.
So look at this. This is the GOP in the House trying to meme. That's their meme there. They put up this big section of a quote. So he's here and he's guilty and he's not really remorseful, even though he's showing remorse. They can read minds, apparently. Republicans can read minds.
That's not what I said, and you know that's not what I said. I pled guilty, and I take responsibility for my actions.
And this is, again, an example of how they're not thinking through what the responses are going to be to their questions. When they accuse him of things, and he can go, I take responsibility for it, it takes air out of their sails. Every time they repeat the same accusation, and he's able to just absorb it and go, I'm not denying it. I am taking responsibility. I'm going to jail for what I did to help Donald Trump. But Donald Trump's not going to jail. You know, and that just leads them down. They're so dumb. Yeah, they act in bad faith. What's new? Exactly. But I guess if you don't get outraged at it,
and Keith Davidson,
it becomes normalized.
And ultimately it came to either do it or don't. At which time, again, I had gone into Mr. Trump's office, as I did after each and every conversation. And he had told me that he had spoken to a couple of friends, and it's 130,000. It's not.
The reason I put this clip in is because this is where Michael Cohen is describing the time period between, like, making the offer to Stormy Daniels and the actual contract being signed and the DNA and everything else. And what I found interesting, and I don't know if anyone else has picked up on this yet, but one of the things that Michael Cohen says Trump said, and I believe this because it sounds like what he does in a lot of situations, Trump had called around and talked to people about it, and they told him 130,000 wasn't very much money and was probably worth it. I'd really like to know, and I don't think Michael Cohen knows, but I'd really like to know who was Trump talking to about this before. Because if he was consulting his friends, then that means other people know about what was being said, why, how, what the concerns were in Trump's minds when he was talking to them. There are more witnesses out there, potentially, according to this account, that could be brought up to say, did you talk to the president about this? What did you advise him? What were his concerns at the time? So I just kind of thought that was important, and not a lot of people I didn't think saw picking up on that. And again, maybe it's just one of those lies that Trump tells, you know, oh, people are saying this. And maybe he just, you know, oh, I called some friends and they said it wasn't much money. He just used that as a way to justify, you know, his own actions. But maybe he likes to talk on the phone. So maybe he did get advice from friends. I want to know who.
Not a lot of money, and we should just do it.
So let's just hear that again.
And I was at the time without gone into Mr. Trump's office as I did after each and every conversation. And he had told me that he had spoken to a couple of friends, and it's $130,000. It's not a lot of money, and we should just do it. So go ahead and do it. And I was at the time with Alan Weisselberg, where he directed us to go back to Mr. Weisselberg's office and figure this all out.
I think Trump is saying Michael Cohen came up with the structure of the Shell Corporation and the home equity loans all on his own, and he did that and he designed that. Well, yeah, he did it at Donald Trump's instruction. So it just points back to the fact that he was ordered to set up this elaborate scheme to hide the funds and to lie about it, to cover it up as part of a crime, because Donald Trump is a criminal. All right, so now we're going to get to this racist-ass Republican. Is this finally where we are in the clips package? We'll see. Nope, not quite yet.
Mr. Cohen.
Oh, yes, it is.
Lynn Patton. I'm right here.
Oh, yes, sir.
Do you know Lynn Patton?
Yes, I do.
All right, so get ready for the big racist bit. You guys all set? And we're going to talk about why this is racist and how it's racist, and Meadows, and why he should sit down and shut up. Okay.
I asked Lynn to come today in her personal capacity to actually shed some light. How long have you known Ms. Patton?
I'm responsible for Lynn Patton joining the Trump organization and the job that she currently holds.
Well, I'm glad you acknowledged that, because you made some very demeaning comments about the president that Ms. Patton doesn't agree with. In fact, it has to do with your claim of racism. She says that as a daughter of a man born in Birmingham, Alabama, that there is no way that she would work for an individual who was racist. How do you reconcile the two of those, Mr.
As neither should I, as the son of a Holocaust survivor.
Boom. 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 You know, you cannot like Michael Cohen, and I get that, but to say that he did not drop the mic on the Republicans a couple times would just be a lie. And there's so much to unpack here. But I also want to, because this does, in the conversations, I'm seeing this kind of being mentioned, but maybe overlooked, how much Cohen takes the wind out of Meadows' sails by making this point. That, you know, it's yeah, he's racist, and he mentioned, and Michael Cohen mentioned about black people, but Michael Cohen also knows, as a member of a minority group, that he shouldn't have been standing with and justifying this guy as a member of a group that's also targeted. And maybe Trump has, you know, some very stereotyped and racist views about the group that he belongs to as well. But let's finish this up, and then we're going to talk about it.
But
sorry. I think we should really enjoy the silence there, because literally Meadows does not know how to reply to that, because he basically just had like his privilege checked, right? This is a white guy like points to a black woman saying, "Let me speak on behalf of this black woman. You say that Trump is racist, but I'm going to I'm going to use the power of this black woman with my white male voice to tell you that Donald Trump is not a racist." And then Michael Cohen says, look, I come from a persecuted ethnic minority. I was wrong to stick with this guy and defend him. And then where does Meadows... So it was... Oh, okay, let's listen to that and just enjoy the silence, because that's Meadows, his head. He's buffering. How do I process this? How do I... Okay, I just got called out. Quick, change the subject.
Mr. Cohen, I guess what I'm saying is I've talked to the president over 300 times. I've not heard one time.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. That was the next is I've never heard. He's never said anything racist in front of me. Therefore, he couldn't possibly be a racist. Okay, I'm gonna explain why that's stupid in a second too. But first, let's just enjoy him processing how he's just been owned by Michael Cohen.
As neither should I, as the son of a Holocaust.
There we go.
Meadows.
Mr. Cohen,
dang it! It's such a long video. Sorry, I'll go to bed.
Patton.
No. There we go.
How long have you known Miss Patton?
Sorry, guys.
Of a man born in Birmingham, Alabama, that there is no way that she would work for an individual who was racist. How do you reconcile the two of those, Mr.
As neither should I, as the son of a Holocaust survivor.
But,
so that was so worth it. Yeah, and the other thing too is, like, where is she getting her? All right, look, I don't begrudge this woman her opinion. I don't begrudge her whole history. I'm not, look, her opinion is fine. Like, if she thinks that Donald Trump is not a racist, that's her worldview. But her worldview doesn't trump everybody else's because she's black. Like, you know, it's not like, and this is the problem. This is the tokenism. It's you know, a one-to-one. Like, if someone has a bunch of experiences and you, well, not necessarily one-to-one, but you bring up charges and go, here's one person who hasn't had those experiences. That's like saying it's impossible for a meteorite to fall on the farm of Farmer Brown, on the land of Farmer, you know, Brown, because in the last 300 days, no meteors have ever fallen on his field. Because you don't see the racism doesn't mean it doesn't exist. Another thing, when men are accused of domestic abuse and their male colleagues go to the newspapers and say, I could never see, he would never do those things. I've never seen anything. Yeah, but you're not his intimate partner. Like, you're a buddy of his. When would you see this? And this woman, again, she's been employed by the Trump family. Good on her. But she was a consultant. She was an event planner. She wasn't in the inner circle. And when she was given a job in the administration, it wasn't in a high post. It was somewhere in HUD. I mean, it was pretty high up, but it's not like she's a cabinet member. So her experiences cannot be considered the totality of Trump's interactions. And to bring her up, what he's really bringing up, what Meadows really is trying to bring up in this instance, is her blackness, not her experience. That's where she gets her validity from. It's not her limited experience with Donald Trump. Being quite young, I don't think she's known him for decades, or in intimate situations. And her experiences are valid, but her experiences don't negate the valid experiences of other people. And honestly, when I saw this and I realized what Meadows was doing, I don't know about you guys, I saw a slave auction. I saw a white man selling a black body and benefiting from it. And when people said that in the room, people were shocked and felt uncomfortable and felt offended. I get that, you know, because I'm middle class, you know, working class, predominantly white bubble. And even I, who, you know, like, I'm not sensitive to nearly the amount of the racial injustice that people live with. I looked at that and went, this just feels so wrong. This feels so inappropriate. And of course, Meadows had a breakdown, even though Meadows brought this woman here, tried to use her blackness to discredit observations of racism, testified to under oath, under penalty not only of new charges, but having his sentence, you know, not reduced for any participation. Michael Cohen has no interest or no benefit to lie about Trump's racism. And this notion in some people's, white people's heads, that you can cancel out complaints of people in this group by using somebody from that group to discount them is a racist way of thinking about things. And even though Meadows made everybody else uncomfortable, the only person who got an apology for this racist bullshit that happened in the congressional hearing was him. The white man got the apology, not anybody that he offended. So, anyway, let's continue on with this nightmare, this completely just ridiculous charade here.
Cohen, I guess what I'm saying is I've talked to the president over 300 times. I've not heard one time a racist comment out of his mouth.
Now, Meadows, by the way, is the person who, in 2012, when he was campaigning, said, yeah, it's time for us to send Barack Obama back, from out of the White House back to Kenya or wherever he's from. And when this was brought up, that because he claimed, I'm not racist, I'm not a racist, I'm not a racist, and people brought that up, he went, I was campaigning. Yeah, you know what? That doesn't matter. Like, you can't claim and cry on national television that you're not a racist when you're doing racist shit. Calling you on your racism is not our problem. It's not we're not bad for pointing out his racism. He is the problem for, okay, even if he's not a malicious KKK burning motherfucker, he is definitely racially insensitive. He has this idea that because he knows black people, that somehow allows him to claim a mantle of tolerance, and he thinks that when he's offended other people through his racially insensitive actions and words, because he doesn't consider himself a racist, nobody should consider his racist bullshit racist. And I'm just seeing all of this, like how privilege works, right? White people don't want to be called a racist. I get that. But then you can't say, because I'm not a racist, what I said can't be racist. Because I don't actually, like, I'm not a aggressive, out there white supremacist, that when I say really racially insensitive things, I can't be held accountable for it because I didn't mean to be racist. And there's a lot of protecting of white people's feelings when the people who are the ones who are being demeaned and degraded and have to take the offense are not getting apologized to. And they're not being treated with that kind of respect that this white man demands after he pulls this shit. So there was a thing I put up on Twitter about, at one point can you say, well, this person isn't a racist, but they did something racist. I mean, where is the line between being a racist and not being a racist when you do racist things? And there was a discussion about, ignorance and doing it, like correcting when you are pointed out. And I think there's all, I mean, I'm not perfect. I've messed up in, my life, I'm sure. I'm learning. But on the other hand, this, I see how some white people think that because they don't feel racist in their hearts, that nothing they can do could be perceived of as racist. And because in their hearts they don't feel like they're racist, if someone says that they're being racist, that person is wrong. The person who experiences racism and is an expert on racism is wrong. But the person who doesn't experience the racism, they know what's racist and what's not racist. And this is the start of a conversation. And the other thing that I want to point out, and then we're going to finish up the show, because I've already gone too long, is the importance of being in the room. When we say, I've talked a little bit about Hannah Pitkin in her book, The Theory of Representation, and there being different types of representation. There's descriptive representation, which means if you look at the Democratic majority in that building, in that room, they look like America. There are black men and black women and Hispanic men and women and white people and gay people and straight people. The Democratic Party descriptively represents the full range of what is available in terms of the American experience. The Republicans draw on a very narrow representative descriptive range. It's old white guys and their wives who have a lot of money and think the end of the world is coming. That's their descriptive representation. It's not America, like the way the Democrats are. Then there's substantive representation. Now, you don't have to be a member of a group to substantively represent them. This is why it's different from descriptive representation. I could, in theory, get elected and be a really good ally and advocate on civil rights issues if I listen to the constituents and then substantively represent their concerns using my voice. That's substantive representation. And in this case, we have both descriptive and substantive representation in a congressional committee in ways I don't think we really have before, because we have people who are not, I think they're less likely to defer to old white guys just because they're old white guys. And this is why Meadows starts crying later on. It's why because he is being publicly called out and humiliated for his bullshit, because people aren't going to defer to him and bow and scrape simply because he's a congressman. Because you know what? These are congresswomen and they have just as much rights, and they are not going to put up with this shit in their hearings. That is their space too. The people who are offended, this congressional hearing is not just Mark Meadows' space, it's their space too. And speaking up, now some did it more tactfully than others, some did it more obliquely, some more directly. But speaking truth to power, I think this is going to see more of these clashes, to be honest. And I think it's good, because Mark Meadows, even if he thinks what he did isn't racist, what he clearly did not do is go the next step. And nobody on his staff went the next step and thought, how is this going to look? How is it going to look that you, as an old white guy, who, with a president we all know is racist AF, you're going to drag up behind you a black woman and speak for her and tell the world that Donald Trump can't be a racist because you're hiding behind a black woman? Think that through. And he didn't. He saw nothing wrong with it. And I bet he's not going to do that again. And that's why the presence of people of color, of women of color, and also allies, but descriptively, having the people in the room is important. And this is why, you know, descriptive representation is not sufficient, but I think it is necessary for a working democracy. All right, let's finish up this exchange, and then we're going to wrap it up.
In private. So how do you reconcile it? Do you have proof of those conversations?
I would ask you to.
Do you have tape recordings of those conversations?
No, sir.
Well, you've taped everybody else. Why wouldn't you have a tape?
That's also not true, sir. That's not true.
You haven't taped anybody?
I have taped individuals.
How many times have you taped individuals?
Maybe 100
I'm waiting
times
for
over
a
10
response
years.
here, so
Is
stick
that
with
a low
me.
estimate? Because I've heard it's over 200 times.
No, I don't think. I think it's approximately about 100 from what I recall. But I would ask
So
you,
why
if
would
you ask me a question, sir.
Do you have proof? Do you have proof? Yes or no?
I do.
Oh, where's the proof?
Ask Ms. Patton how many people who are black are executives at the Trump Organization, and the answer is zero.
Cohen,
and that was it. You can say Donald Trump has never said anything racist in front of me, but look at his actions. Look at who he surrounds himself with. You know where he puts women? Like, other than like at, you know, education and other girly kind of departments, he puts them in communications positions. He makes them, they're his Vanna White, like Nikki Haley and Sarah Sanders and Kellyanne Conway. The only time he gives women responsibility is to be a sort of a spokesmodel for his brand. But in terms of actually exercising and wielding executive authority or power at the cabinet level, there's really none, except super rich, you know, Betsy DeVos is the only woman, I guess. Oh, and then Mitch McConnell's wife, who always gets a job in every Republican administration, right? Like, I don't want to take away from Chow. I'm sure she's really, you know, she's got qualifications and stuff, but you know that being married to the majority leader has got to help. So look at this. We got 18 minutes into my 1 hour and 23-minute video. AOC and all of the really great progressive Democrats do come in at the end. But at this point, thanks for sticking around with me, you guys. I will give Kevin a heads up that we can go over these clips. I tried to, put them all up as, you know, just little sections with some fade outs to indicate when the conversation was supposed to take place. And if I don't get to it with Kevin with the happy hour, then I'll pick it up tomorrow. So, 2 minutes after the hour, I see a whole bunch of comments, and foreign policy, Venezuela. The reason why I don't do a Venezuela, so I'm talking to the chat now. The reason I don't do a lot of videos on things like Venezuela is because I don't know enough about it to speak intelligently to it. And I just generally have a rule that if I don't know about a topic, I kind of avoid saying anything about it because I don't have anything intelligent to add. So, you know, Kevin and I were always still friends. He was just mad, and then he wasn't mad. Like, I never had it's fine. People, you know, like, a thing about friendships is you have disagreements and then you figure out a way to make up and move on. That's part of being a friend. So, Yada yada. There's a lot of stuff here. I think the chat is mostly you being obnoxious. Yeah, UT. It is you. So, and the reason why, I'm going to tell you, I mean, I'll probably have to say this about 1 billion times. The reason I support Harris is because I think she hits the electoral sweet spot. I mean, I also like a lot of her positions. You know, if you follow her on Twitter, you can see that her positions are very much in line with other progressive positions. I know other people are saying, oh, in the past she was a cop. Well, in the past, you know, Bernie Sanders, what is his relationship with the NRA? That, you know, and what is it today? Like, is he still getting money from the NRA? Is he still defending guns? This is not something that I bring up with to discredit Sanders. Like, I don't always talk about the NRA when it comes to Bernie Sanders and how problematic he is in the past. I care about where you want to go now. And I understand that people have to build careers, and you build careers, again, having worked in politics, you build careers in the political climate that you operate in. And then you evolve. If you remember, guys, Barack Obama opposed marriage equality. He ran and won the Democratic nomination and then the general election opposing marriage equality. Later, when he came into office, he evolved into supporting marriage equality. So, are you always going to get the perfect candidate? No, you're definitely not. But I'm looking for somebody who is as progressive as I think they can be to get elected, who is, you know, just, I don't want to say, you know, well-spoken, but no, you have to be a good communicator. Shall we say that? You have to be a good communicator with the voters. You need a presence. And I do think that her law enforcement background will offset some of the kind of lefty, you say, like the ease of the lefty rhetoric that, or the socialist rhetoric that the right wants to paint. And clearly socialism is their goal for next time. I can take these out, actually. I'm not using these anymore. I just feel naked without my headphones. I feel so naked without my headphones. And so I think Harris she kind of occupies in my mind slightly was on law enforcement, let's say, maybe a slightly more centrist position than Barack Obama, but I kind of see her occupying as very much a similar space as Barack Obama did in 2008? Yeah, when he ran. And I mean, my instincts on that are being borne out by the fact that she's coming second to Joe Biden in Iowa, and Bernie Sanders is coming in third in Iowa. And I actually think that if you look at the farther left of the spectrum, there's more competition in the Democratic primary on the farther left side than on the sort of the middle left. I think with Warren and Sanders and a couple other people, they're going to be fighting over that part of the base. But I think that a more centrist, not only more centrist, but a center left. And I don't think she's centrist. I think she's center left compared to Bernie, but she's right wing, or she's left wing compared to other people. But I just feel like in terms of a candidate that could go all the way and carry our agenda forward once she gets to the White House and has to work with Republicans, that's the horse I'm backing. So you can tell me she's a cop. I know she's no longer a cop. You can tell me that in the past she did things that you disagree with. Bernie did things that I disagree with. That's not what I care about. Why I think he's not the person to be the Democratic Party leader. And I think electability is important. And if you disagree with me on that, we're going to disagree a lot in the next year and a half, because I've always been interested in making sure we get Democrats in power because they pass less shitty legislation than Republicans. Much, much less shitty, especially on issues that I care about, like abortion and healthcare access and the violence against women funding and other things that, like I think are important to the women of America. You definitely want a Democrat in the White House. Even on the global gag. Just having a Democrat in the White House immediately frees up funding for family planning across the country, across the globe, that allows medical professionals to mention abortion and still get American family planning funding and health funding. So it's a life or death situation when Republicans or Democrats are in the White House, and so I want to win. And I don't think you win by going and electing the farthest left candidate that you can, and then hoping that you can make it through the general, because the presidency, there's not much a president can do anyway legislatively. So if you have a far left president who's too far left, farther left than the people in the House and the Senate, you're not going to get a big revolution. The President Bernie Sanders can't go down there and thunder at House and Senate and make them pass legislation. You have to be able to work with them. And that was Barack Obama's fatal flaw, is he tried to work with the Republicans, but you need to at least work with the people in your party and be on the same page with the platform. So anyway, I said I was going to go, doing the thing where I talk too long. So without fail, you will find justifications for all kinds of awful stuff. If you must show loyalty to Democrats, form of liberalism, Sanders is also a symptom of that. Oh well, UT's going on a rant in the chat. That will maybe continue after the show. Hey, if you guys don't have anything better to do, and even if you do, maybe come by anyway. Kevin and I are having a happy hour on his channel tonight. In how many hours? What is it? 3 o'clock now, and we're starting at 9 o'clock my time, so just under 6 hours. And we are going to be talking about Jordan Peterson and shaking our fists at the screen at how dumb he is, I think. And then we are also maybe going to finish up some of these clips here. And I am going to go and file a dispute with Vice. They can feck off if they think that they're going to be able to claim monetization on my video that I'm actually stealing it from C-SPAN 3. No way, Vice. I'm not going to let you get away with that. All right, guys. So thanks for watching. I will, and most likelihood, set up a similar stream for noon tomorrow, because I don't have to work. I have to work on Monday, but I don't have to do work early in the morning on Sunday, or Saturday and Sunday, so we can have our usual time. Until then, you guys, I have been Kristi. You've been awesome. I've managed to not mute myself an entire show. Thank you for having my back. Thank you for being in the chat. Thank you to, who was it who gave me the money? There's one last thing. Oh, there you go. Special shout out to Adobe. How do you say your last name, Adobe? Thank you for the $2. Much appreciated. And all then that needs to be said is that I've been Kristi. You guys are super, super, super awesome. And I'll see you tonight on the happy hour. Or in the chat, at least, because you're not going to be on the show with us. Okay. Bye.